Pulling the Trigger is sponsored by Easy Vape North Shore, the industry's leading direct retailer of the highest quality personal vaporizers, e-cigs, vapes, and Canadian-made e-juice. Located at 987 Marine Drive in North Vancouver, or you can check them out online at www.easyvapecanada.com. You can also donate to the Pulling the Trigger Patreon account. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it easy for artists and creators to connect with their fans and get paid. That's at www.patreon.com/MarkHughesComic. And don't forget to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/PTG604. Welcome to Pulling the Trigger. I am Mark Hughes, and this podcast is wonderfully produced by Taylor Murray. Thank you very much, Taylor, because you're doing stuff that I don't want to learn how to do. The technical shit. The date today is... I'm always bad at this part. December 5th, 2017. By the time you're hearing this, it'll be December 7th, 2017. What's going on for me lately? Just open mics and stuff. I go to my recovery meetings. We're joined today in studio, in other words, my bedroom, by one of my ferrets, Goku. He's going back to sleep. Puppy was around here somewhere, and Chuckles woke up for a brief second, then went back to bed. Going to be going out to Winnipeg in a couple weeks for a couple days. Hopefully going to interview someone while I'm there. He'll be another spicy guest. Ooh, one that'll cause controversy, I bet. People will bring my character into question again just by interviewing them. I love that stuff. Got yelled at on Facebook the other day because about 6 months ago I didn't drop everything I was doing and try and help someone who was going through an emotional crisis. And I'm not going to pick on that particular incident, but this happens to me all the time because I'm very open about my life and I overshare, and I'm probably inappropriately oversharing. A lot of people use me as an emotional or traumatic dumping ground. Complete strangers. I'll get messages from people on social media talking about how they were molested when they were kids and stuff like that, or they're high on coke at midnight and now they're thinking about getting help for their drug problem. Then they sober up the next day and they don't want to talk about it. But this happens all the time. And it gets over-fucking-whelming. I want to help people. I want to do the best I can to make the world a bit of a better place, even if it's just to assuage my conscience from previous misdeeds. But I can't handle all that. And often it's just, I'm just being used as a sin eater. Sin eater is someone who, back when the Catholic Church used to rule the world, if you got excommunicated, you couldn't give your last confession before you died. So there were these outcasts who would listen to your last confession, extreme unction as they call it, so you could get into heaven. And that's what I often feel like. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. If people want help, they can go see a therapist. I mean, I'll pick and choose where I can help and where I can share my experience, but often people want to argue with me too. How did you get clean? I did this, I did this, I did this. I went to treatment. I did what they said in treatment. I went to meetings afterwards. I did what they said in the meetings, and I dramatically changed my life. I stopped hanging around criminals. I started hanging around pro-social people. I got life skills training. I learned social skills. I went to therapy. And usually by the time I've listed off 2 of those things I did, people want to start arguing with me. Well, I don't want to be abstinent. I want to continue smoking weed. Okay, good for you. I can't help you with that. That's not what I did. Oh, God. It's like going to a mechanic and the guy says, here's what's wrong and here's how you fix it. And you don't want to... You start saying, well, I don't think the brakes should get fixed, even though they're the problem. I can't come up with a funnier analogy than that. I'm sorry. I'm not always good at this stuff yet. And people get demanding, too. That's the worst part. They start freaking out at me like it's my fault they're fucked up. But to be fair, I used to do that, too. So karma, if you believe in that, it's coming back at me. Do I have any opinions on anything this week? Anything going on? Nah, not really. I haven't seen much that's... I'm exposed to a lot of what I would call left-wing or liberal stuff. And A lot of people think that I am like a harsh liberal or a left-wing guy. People use the word advocate or activist with me. No. What I am is a concerned citizen who's just trying to make the world a bit better than whence I came. And I sound like a fucking idiot even saying that. That sounds so dumb, what I just said. But it is what it is. I'm not someone who can be used as a poster child. Often when people do hold me up like that, I then am pushed off the pedestal because I don't represent someone who's undergone change. I make a bad fucking success story. I've been accused of not representing recovery well. I've been accused of not representing male survivors well. I punch down in my jokes. I'm never claimed to be an advocate. I never claimed to be an activist. So I am what I am. I do what I do. I joke about what I want to joke about. I talk about what I want to talk about. I'm more conservative than a lot of my liberal friends, and I'm more liberal than a lot of my conservative friends. I'm not an alt-right guy. I'm not a social justice warrior. I make up my mind case by case on an issue by issue. So yeah, some things people are going to hate me for. Some people are going to call me problematic. Some people are going to call me a snowflake cuck. I don't give a fuck. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, is just because I want to show the world sort of some of the people I know and some of the things I see through their lens, not through mine, and show, maybe it's self-serving, maybe not, I don't know, maybe it's both, maybe it helps others, but it shows the world that, like, there's so many different viewpoints. And I'm tired of the bourgeois, middle class one that inhabits this town, social justice advocates when it's convenient, middle class bigots when it's not, and whatever. Go ahead, be a bigot. Go ahead, be a social justice warrior. Whatever, man. Just let me tell my fucking jokes, and if you get offended, just blog about me and spell my name right. Fuck. There. Got that off my chest. So, we are joined by an actual bona fide activist today on this episode. Sarah Blyth, who many people have heard of. She's been on the media tons. Started the Overdose Prevention Society, which ran pop-up safe injection sites, which were technically illegal safe injection sites in Vancouver to help combat the opioid epidemic and overdoses. I'll let her tell the story. She's a really cool person. I first met her when I was doing fundraising last year for the Overdose Prevention Society. Did a couple comedy shows, had a good time with that. And now they're at a place where they're generating income and they don't need as many, if any, donations. So without further ado, let's talk to Sarah Blyth. So you're looking for a house or housing?
Yeah, well, everybody's always kind of looking for housing to see if there's something affordable out there.
Right.
Which, you know.
Gonna move?
It depends if you can find something that's affordable that takes pets, which is a very difficult thing.
You have pets?
Yeah.
What do you have?
I have some dogs.
Some dogs?
Huskies.
Oh, huskies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's big dogs too, then?
Big dogs, yeah.
How many do you have?
3.
Oh, wow. And you live in... I dropped you off at your place one time. It's just a small little place. You have 3 dogs in like a...
Well, no, it's about 1,000 square feet.
Okay, so it's not that small.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
neat.
it's a pretty big apartment. It's an old apartment.
Okay.
Right? So, you know how they used to build them with an actual kitchen and actual bedrooms.
Like for a family.
For a family, like a real apartment.
Yeah.
Now it's really expensive and not much space. So you kind of have to, get into like the old apartments that are kind of run down, or you get into a brand new apartment and there's not really enough space to have a proper life.
Yeah, the new ones all tend to be really small, I've noticed,
yeah.
Even if they're cleaner and more fancy.
Well, not necessarily, because I find that the old apartments are made with, the better stuff, like the big old cast iron tubs.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And like, things that last, because they used to make things that last, right?
No more. Now they have manufactured
Now
obsolescence.
only people that are rich can afford things that last, right? So the rest of us have to buy things that are,
Well, you're listening to Pulling the Trigger, and I'm here with Sarah Blyth today, and Sarah the most interesting thing in my opinion is that she owns 3 huskies. I don't care about the other shit that you do, to be honest. And Sarah what do you do?
Well, I manage a market in the downtown east side, which has about 1,000 vendors, and who are on welfare or social housing or disability, and to make an extra bit of money and recycle goods that they find in the city and trade and buy and sell stuff. And I don't know, it's such a, welfare it doesn't last more than a couple of days. Even if you're not using any drugs or anything, it's impossible to live off.
What is a welfare check these days?
I don't even know. I think it's like
it was 600 when I was on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's changed much, right? So it
so.
hasn't changed much. People with disabilities get a bit more, but at the end of the day, it's not enough. I mean, think about it. I'm looking at housing right now. It's like $3,000. People are living in SROs. They get, more than half of their check taken off, and then what do you spend $200 on for a whole month?
Right? In a month, especially in a city like Vancouver.
So it's nice to have a market where people can go and they buy stuff, they sell stuff, they trade stuff. We also have folks that run the market that are from the downtown east side. So our board of directors are all residents of the downtown east side. So it's run by the community for the community, and it really is I would say in a lot of ways right now is the heart of the community.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed when I come down here, and it seems to be even though it's like a beehive when I go in there, there is some sense of calm when I go to the market, because there's a bit of structure to it. It's not just a chaotic thing. It's all the same people. This is just my observation on it, right? It's all the same people, but it's like they all have roles, which makes it a bit more harmonious.
Yeah. And we have cleaners, we have people who put the tents up. We put about 30 tents up every day, and then we have our bigger markets at 501 Powell on the weekends. So
what's the difference between the two? So there's two addresses. What are they?
62 East Hastings, which is right on the unit block, and then we've got the bigger market, which used to be the Pigeon Park Market, the big market at Pigeon Park. We moved it up to 501 Powell, which we're going to move back to 62. So
they'll all be in one.
Yeah. Right now we're in the process of moving the Overdose Prevention site.
Right.
At the end of the month, it's actually a really quick process, into an indoor location at right next to the market. There's an empty space. So we're going to be moving that, and then we're going to take over the back. So the market's actually going to expand and try and get some of the folks that are out on the street into the market. So there's no more lingering folks trying to sell stuff, but they're all organized in the market, and we can have a place for them to sell. And actually the market's, it's very popular, and it's a place for people to get out. Not a lot of people want to go to the park or even feel comfortable in the park, but this is their kind of park area. This is what they want to do. And so we're happy to be able to accommodate that. But as you know, we had so many overdoses in the area. So we were dealing with so many overdoses that we opened up a tent in the back, and that was kind of a legal operation that we were doing, and we were doing it because we were just dealing with so many overdoses, and then that sort of turned into a bigger overdose prevention area in the back. So we're gonna cut that down and make it into a full-on market.
More so the space where the overdose or the supervised injection site will be market, and the supervised injection site will be more it'll be indoors.
Yeah.
And so the supervised injection site, safe injection site, whatever you want to call it, that's sort of what made you famous. How did that come about? You were touched on it because you were running the market. Well, let's go back a step. How did you get into running the market?
So the market was being run by some folks, and I think they had kind of hit their wall. So I'll just say it like that. But there was some issues with the market, and the market had to move from Pigeon to 501, and it also was expanding to 7 days a week. So I was on the board of directors, and I saw that it needed some help, and I worked with Chris Ewart and Ann Livingston, and we kind of put it back together, kind of repaired some of the relationships with the city and some of the other folks in the neighborhood, and then made the market run 7 days a week, because it used to only be 1 day a week, but we saw a lot of value in having it, so we wanted to make sure that it could run 7 days a week, and because it was something people wanted in the neighborhood, giving something to them that they wanted. So,
and then while you're running the market, from what I've heard and what you said, is there were overdoses going on around you.
Yeah.
And then how did... I've read this story, but some of the people listening to this may not have heard it. Like, I've seen it on the news all over the place. How did you go from running a market to going, we need to respond to this overdose situation by providing a safe place for people to get high?
Yeah. So really, because our market is right on the unit block where the people are using the most drugs in Vancouver, and in the alley where people are using, one of the two alleys, one behind Insight and one behind us, are the two most used for drug users in Vancouver.
For listeners who aren't from Vancouver and don't totally know what we're talking about, the alleys she's talking about are basically a block away from the infamous Main and Hastings. So.
Yeah. So anyways, our alley, is filled with people all the time behind our market. And we had a fence. The fence was closed to that alley. And then in the front, because we were outside in the market, people would come to running to us because there was no door. You just, hey, there's an overdose. So we were like running down the street and, dealing with overdoses there. And then there'd be one in the alley, and then there'd be one in finally Janet, one of our supervisor volunteers, her son died up the street. And it was just like, and we had a few other folks that died and in the neighborhood, and it just kept happening. And finally we just said, you know what, we need to be organized. Like, we don't need to be who's got Narcan training, like all of those things is too much time to deal with this issue. So we basically just opened the back gate, put up a tent, had everything organized in sort of a medic tent, and some people were saying that you can't do that there, and we just said, yeah, actually, we're going to do that because people are dying, and like, you can't wait any time for it, and you can't stop us. And I think people saw what was going on. The media came down, and it was shocking because you could see people overdosing everywhere. I mean, it was happening so frequently.
What year was that?
That was in
2015,
2016.
2016.
Yeah, so that was a year ago.
And one of the reasons that it garnered media attention as well is because technically it was illegal.
Yeah,
having the space to have, because
So we started in September
of 2016.
Yeah, and then we went on a few months, and people said you can't do that on this space, and we said, we're just a tent. We closed the tent up, we moved the tent around, we put a tent in a different area, we took this tent to Surrey.
Punk rock.
We just said, well, we can't just allow people to die, so we're not going to allow people to die, and you don't really want us to allow people to die. I mean, are you going to really stop us from allowing people to die? And it saves money because you don't have to have them go in the ambulance. It saves money because, for obvious reasons, there's just no economic or any kind of social anything that would justify not having us there. So in December I guess a week before December 23rd, Terry Lake woke up at 4. He was the health minister at the time. He woke up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. and he said, what they're doing is right. We need to expand this because this is crazy. And so he did, and that was great of the province.
You were existing on donations at that time.
Yes, we did a GoFundMe campaign, and you helped us too.
Well, that's how I came in contact with you. As I decided I wanted to put on a fundraiser. I was getting my picture taken out front of the West. This is Columbia. Carol, and I'm standing. The listeners can't see this. I'm standing by the door, and then 10 feet away, a guy goes down while the photographer's taking a picture of me, and I'm supposed to be like the success story recovery addict, and I'm watching this. No, look at the camera. I'm looking at this guy over, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? And because you hear about it, and I don't hang out down here that much anymore, right? And I see it, I'm like, and immediately I marched over to the 62.
Yeah.
And Anne was there, and because I'd been planning on, but I didn't want to do it without you guys saying it was okay, right? Because it might be inappropriate. And I said, Anne, hi, I'm Mark. I want to do a fundraiser. Is that okay? Yeah. And immediately I was like, okay, I got to do this because I was like, that's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Call it what you will. Maybe it was survivor's guilt. I don't know, but I'm like, that could have been me, and I'm getting this fucking stupid picture taken for this dumb story. I mean, it's not dumb, but I thought it was, and I'm like, who gives a shit about me?
It puts everything into context.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's stark reality. Boom, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, that was a rant. So then there you are, existing off of donations, and then Terry Lake makes this announcement.
Yeah.
And then did that change?
Yes,
Yeah.
it did. Yeah, it changed. They gave us funding to give gifts to our volunteers that they could that we could give them something for food, and it also we got a trailer donated, and we were able to have a manager and things like that. So then it was more of a legitimate operation, and they opened up a few more. We got Vandu, and so it actually, now you won't see that as much, and there's lots of places for people to go, and it's not completely under control, and people are dying still in their housing.
Most of the deaths, no, all of the deaths are not at supervised injection sites.
We've seen thousands and thousands of people,
right? But no one dies.
No one's ever died, and we've saved over 1,000 lives just at our facility alone. So,
well, now one thing that people were wondering about is like, well, we have Insight. Why weren't they there to save all these people who were dying? Why did you need to step in?
Because Insight was busy,
right?
And it was
only 25.
Yeah, and I worked at Insight, and there's always a huge lineup in the front, and it was just. I mean, I feel as a staff person, like you feel like you'd done 100 shifts just doing one shift. There's just no way that I felt. And I was just talking to staff about this the other day. It's just the overwhelming, just constant, in out, it's just, it was at such a high level of pressure to get people in and out and back in and out and a huge lineup and people upset. How long are people going to wait? They're going to go home and they're going to use and die alone. So it was just the matter of that it had totally reached its capacity a long, long time ago. And, and I think that they're grateful that we're around now, that they can actually...
Takes the pressure off.
But they also have other resources like nurses and that can see people now, and it's not just like constant
It's not
pressure.
Responding to crisis all the time.
Yeah,
right?
so, they're able to do a different kind of service, and they've got on-site upstairs. Maybe they can focus on trying to get people, other kinds of services if they need them, and whereas, we can do take some of that off them.
I remember the last time I was on the street getting high, March 2006. I'd gotten out of prison the year before, and Insight had been open for a few years. And it's long story short, I had relapsed. I'd been clean for a few years when I got out, and I relapsed. And I scored some coke, and was it heroin? Coke, anyway. And there's no needle exchange anymore. I'd forgotten that there's no needle exchange. And I asked someone, where do you get rigs around here? Now, rigs are syringes for normie listeners. And they said, you go to the safe injection site. So I was like, oh yeah, neat. I'm going to try this newfangled safe injection site. And even back then, the person at the front desk said it'll be about a half an hour wait. I went, yeah, right. I'm not waiting that long. I just went in the alley. Right?
Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of people are probably like that, right? Like, I'm not waiting half an hour.
Yeah, nobody wants to wait.
Yeah.
Now, it seems like the pressure's off enough. You can send them somewhere else if there's a wait.
Other places
they can go,
to go,
hey, you know what? There's too much of a wait here. I'm out. Yeah. We don't really have a wait at our place.
When I did this, the amount of time I spent at 62, I noticed there were always empty seats. Like, people could come in if they wanted to, and they're
it's very low barrier.
Yeah.
It's probably the least barrier operation that there will be.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what makes it unique, is that it's just basically we allow things to be as low barrier as possible. Just exactly, you come in, you use as you there are a few rules, but we try not to be, too militant in any way. Just try and make it as easygoing as we can, so that people feel comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm. How did the police deal with the site when you first opened it? It being technically illegal and whatnot.
The police were actually the ones that probably were the most sort of like, this is a health issue, and they were the ones to make it so that I think that public officials actually said, okay, what if they're saying it's a health issue, then we should really take it seriously as a health issue. And I think that they said, we're not dealing with this, it's a health issue. So kudos to the police for that, because that's exactly what it is. And I still believe that it shouldn't be dealt with by the police. I think it needs to be, each person needs to be helped in a medical type way, in a unique, everybody gets into drugs for their own reasons, and they're all very unique. And don't you think?
I do, yeah.
I mean, some of it's from
trauma, some of it's from abuse,
some of it's from physical pain, like getting in a car accident and losing your legs.
Some of it's for no discernible reason. They just did dope and couldn't stop one day.
Schizophrenia.
Mental health issues.
Yeah. A lot of heroin, I find that a lot of schizophrenics find heroin to be actually one of the drugs that, sometimes no drug works for schizophrenia, and they're really awful, some of the drugs, right?
Yeah.
And so heroin just takes away all of it.
Oh, wow.
And some people with schizophrenia, really, it's the only relief that they can get.
Heroin.
And so then they find the relief that they can get in the streets, which is not good, right? We don't want people with serious mental health issues out in the streets getting drugs from people like Kyle.
Yeah. Did you listen to that episode?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
What'd you think?
Well, I think...
Oh, just to give it some context, Kyle is a drug dealer, a fentanyl dealer I had as a guest in one of the... By the time you listen to this episode, it'll be a number of episodes back. Episode 4, anyway.
I think that, Kyle, it sounds like he's had a bit of a difficult story himself. Mm-hmm. And I feel sad that, that dealing fentanyl is the only way that he sees, a future for himself. And because it does affect people that we see in a really negative way. And, I wish there was better choices for people to make.
That's the thing, is people would say to me, like, I get it. Like, I was in life. I never dealt drugs, but I used to, like... I served 8 years in prison for holding a meat cleaver to someone's throat in their own house. You know what I mean? And that seemed like a good idea at the time. So I can identify with someone saying, well, this is the only thing I know how to do. I don't know what else to do. And it's like... I recognize that it's probably not good, but I feel trapped, too, by it, right? Even though he didn't use those words. But, like, the thinking or the perception is that there is no way out. And I don't like what I'm doing, but I can't get out of it either, right? Yeah. And that's not, it's morality's removed from it. You don't see it like that. Yeah. It's not, because you know you're hurting people, or in this case, killing people, but it's like a survival thing too. You're just thinking, no, I don't have a choice, right?
And I don't agree that he doesn't have a choice. I wish that
that's the thing. And I can say, having gotten out of the life, I did have a choice. I just didn't know I did. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't examine the options.
And you know what? Whatever. I used drugs until I was 25. And not that has anything to do with that, but and drank, and then I just stopped because I was like, I found that I had a choice. There's a point where you know that you have a choice, and I wish it's an easy way out in a lot of ways for people, and it's a lot of, it would be hard work to get into a situation that was the only choice you had to have.
Right.
And so I mean, we see it from the other point of view where we see people.
You see what happens after a guy like him has sold it to someone, right?
And I disagree about it, cocaine not having it in it, because I've seen people overdose from it, and so it can't just be sitting on the same plate if they're overdosing and almost dying when they're using
from doing coke. Now, this is the one I can never get, because I know that too. As I hear that other people, or it's not just opiates that have the fentanyl; it's the other stuff. How is it getting in there? That's the thing I don't get, because I can't see a dealer going, I'm going to throw fentanyl in this coke.
Well,
is it accidental or?
I don't know. I have a feeling that when it gets to people in the downtown east side, this is what I kind of think is that, and like it comes in at the top, and then you got the dealer that brings it in, and you got the next guy who steps on it or puts a little. The
wholesale. You got the importer exporter, then you got the wholesaler.
So you got the next guy, and he's like, I'm going to make this more potent, or I'm going to put Comet or pig dewormer and fill it with other things, and then it goes down to another level, and it might make its way down to the downtown east side, and even the guy on the street puts something else in it. Could be fentanyl, right? Yeah. So it might be clean at the top, but as it comes down, it gets a lot of different things are put in it to expand it. And fentanyl would be something, like if by the time they get it, it's just shitty coke, maybe they put fentanyl in it to give it something. So I think that, I think it's in there.
Right.
I know it's in there because we test our product and it's in there. It's in everything, right? And, now we can go and test, and we're going to go and test some coke samples. And you can, there's that new stuff that they've got, or that new equipment they have at Insight where they can tell how much of what.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, you'll get a better idea of, what they're putting into what.
Right.
But I think when it gets, to the streets, like it can be, because of that process of people putting different things in it, I think it can end up with just a whole shit. It's all a shit mix. Right?
Fentanyl's probably not even the only poison.
Yeah, it could have, it's just a shit mix of different things, and fentanyl is like whatever. It's in everything.
Well, because it's so cheap too, right?
It's so cheap, and if you get it to the point and someone does a line of Coke and they're like, fuck, this is shitty Coke, throw some fentanyl in it, and, I don't know how they make the decision, really, but all I can say is that it's always a shit mix these days, and it does all kinds of weird shit to people, right? So I don't know if people, maybe some dealers have some ethics to what having a substance actually be what it is, but I would say I don't think that's really the objective.
Well, here's the thing that I know, because I know in my life I know two different categories of drug users. Right? I know your party types, the casual users, the socially acceptable drug users. That seems to be almost everyone in Vancouver that snorts coke. Does a lot of cocaine's really popular, and amongst quote unquote normal people, right? And then I know the hardcore drug users who are down here. I was never the normal one. I was always the hardcore one. But it's funny because I got clean now, and I never even hung out with the normal ones. It's as a result of getting clean and doing some of the things I do. I'm around the normal ones now, and the dealers they're getting their shit from is probably very. I mean, I bet you if you go up and high enough, it connects. But the dealers they get their dope off, which is a lot different than the people down here are getting their stuff from, and they all claim that their dealers are ethical, right? And I guess because not all until they're not until they get it from until that dealer gets it from someone who did something to it or whatever, right?
I mean, the only way you can tell that your drugs are clean is that you test them,
right?
And I would say if you're just one of your friends, I would go to Insight and test my drugs.
And that's the funny thing is, the people I know, and this is the thing that
why would you trust a dealer? I
know the guy, but
I mean, it's the guys that do coke, a line of coke by themselves, that are the ones that I've met. I know a woman who she does crack.
Yeah.
She did crack in her room alone. Yeah. Fucking snorted a line. She goes out, drinks, does crack once in a while. Yeah. Died. Right. Those are the people that die, right? The ones that don't really. This is a pattern. Like old men, they do crack, they do coke. They drink, they do a line of coke, they do it by themselves, whatever. You know what I mean? And
that's sort of what got the media attention on this issue, is that quote unquote normal people were dying. It wasn't just junkies in an alley, right? It was like, I remember the couple in North.
There's a lot of people that are dying.
Yeah.
Not here. Yeah. Everywhere else. That's where people are dying.
Yeah.
So to say that drug supply, because those dealers are more considerate, ethical. They're not.
No, because people who are dying.
Kyle may be, an exception to the rule, but I would say it's a very, very dangerous thing to pretend that dealers care.
Right.
You have to care about yourself. If you're the one who's using drugs on a weekend, you decide you want to go with, because you hear all these stories about husband and wife, leave the kids behind and they, go on a trip and they use drugs alone together and they both die. Like, you've heard that
story. That was the North Van story. Yeah.
And you hear stories like that and stories about kids using alone at home, whatever. And it's all over the country. It's not here. It's in small towns and stuff too. So it's not just in the downtown east side.
No.
It's worse probably in the downtown east side.
It's just because it's concentrated.
Yeah. And more people are trying to make, maybe the dealer on the streets putting something in there to make a little extra money, to add something in to something else. But it's all about money, and every person who handles the dope trying to make a little extra money on it.
Well, you must know dealers down here who are also users too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they must sell some of this stuff that has shit in it.
They're very low level.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Selling
I
$10 things here and there, right? $10
Yeah.
papers. Or what is it? Papers these days? What does it come in?
Papers.
Spitballs? Does it still come in spitballs?
I don't. Yeah.
Okay, back in. See, that's. Now I'm old enough to be like back in my day. And
Flaps.
flaps, yeah. And what are the popular drugs down here now?
Meth is a very popular drug down here, and it's all fucked up because it has all kinds of shit in it too.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, it's not just fentanyl and everything; it's everything and everything. It's fucking like, you know, someone was saying there was like they were having hallucinations, or you get all kinds of side effects from all kinds of, you know, weird substances that they're finding in drugs. Someone was saying that they thought acid was in some of the drugs or whatever. I don't know. I just would not take drugs unless I tested it. That's my opinion on it.
I guess when you're in the grip of a hardcore drug addiction, though, that's the
I guess
self-care kind of goes out the window, right?
That's my message, I think, to the greater people.
The normal people, right?
The people down here in the grips of like addiction, I understand.
Yeah.
And you know, I wish that we could get them. These folks need safe, clean supply of drugs. Like I have a medical management diploma, and I am, you know, have been able to hand out methadone to people at the Portland. Like, you get your prescriptions, you can hand them out what they need every day. You give them their drugs a few times a day, whatever they might be. Most of them are worse than heroin. You know what I mean? They're just like you have to manage that. And so for me to set up a little booth and like have people's photos and say, okay, you checked in, here's your dose, here you go. Something really low barrier where I can hand out some meds. We can watch them, make sure they don't overdose. They come back in a few hours. Something like Crosstown. I like Crosstown.
Crosstown's where they have the medical heroin, right? Yeah.
So, and that's fabulous. But I think that to expand that rapidly, there's barriers to that because it's a very expensive model, right?
Yeah, because it's all healthcare like high-paid healthcare.
So if you had someone like me, or mental health workers that maybe a nurse, and you could just go through the med management same thing situation and monitor people using safe drugs down here. And if you just like did thousands of people a day and you had that going, I think you would make a impactful change in this particular area. That's not going to work for the bigger, the coke users or the people, but because it's not really, we live in like I don't know, everybody tries drugs when they're young in BC, at least. I don't know, mostly everywhere in Canada. It's kind of a drug, it's part of being youth. Mostly everybody tries some kind of smoking marijuana.
I don't know too many people who've never tried drugs in their life.
Yeah.
Even my dad.
I know. When politicians say, oh, I never did any drugs, they're bullshitting. That's their first bullshit. Because everybody, especially from the 70s, everybody's tried drugs, right? So, they don't always work for people. But the problem is they do work for people that have other underlying issues of like depression. It's like, oh, this makes me feel so much better than I was feeling before. or any kind of trauma, PTSD, all of those things that people suffer from and have not been properly diagnosed. Or even doing, not doing that great in school, nice to get drunk and forget about it, or didn't make the basketball team, or, all those things that are difficult on a young person growing up. And, there's gangs in schools, right? So, that kind of thing. So there's always a lure at a young age. I think the school system actually fails young people in a lot of ways. And that's where I think it all starts. I think, you can help people when they're young and to be successful in their life, and then you won't deal with the whole lifetime of terrible life. And you know what I mean? If better, like maybe group schools for kids that are having troubles where they do great, there's just, I don't know, more support.
I used to see a psychiatrist, surprise, that told me that the public school system actually is designed to keep edge out kids with learning disabilities or problems and geniuses.
Yeah.
It wants just average people. So anyone who doesn't fit into what you would consider average is going to have a problem in the public school system, right? And he says that's why I'm paraphrasing, but he said basically that's why people end up in places like the downtown east side.
And I always say, people, I always say you would be surprised how intelligent, it doesn't mean, you have addiction.
It's not about intelligence.
It's not about intelligence. And
sometimes intelligence can be a detriment.
Absolutely. Very intelligent people have a hard time dealing with the way the world works sometimes because...
It's another layer of isolation.
Yeah.
Because not that I'm a genius, but I always saw things a bit different than other people. Yeah. Let's just call myself creative.
Yeah.
I don't want to be arrogant, but I would see things that other people didn't see, or I'd make observations that other people didn't, and then I'd be labeled weird because of it.
Any way that you're different in society, you know what I mean? Whether it's different looking, or you got no teeth, or you got a limb missing, or you're anything that makes you different makes you vulnerable to addiction, I think, and it makes you vulnerable to feeling different in the world, and you go to get a job, and if people see something different about you, like it's the worst thing when I started working down here in the homeless shelter was who was homeless. It was the people with like there was a couple people who couldn't hear, they had hearing impairments, 2 people, and like multiple sclerosis. There was like 2 schizophrenics and a person with autism, like very severe mental health and physical schizophrenia, all in the shelter at once. And I was like, really? This shelter is how we're going to deal with these, mental health issue people, and they're going to be on drugs, and they're not, like, how could this possibly? It was just, I think that was the thing that really, that's the thing that really fucks me up the most about down here, is that, you will get a bunch of people with serious problems, and that society's been such a failure to helping them, right? That was,
it's like a repository.
It's not just like, and then people go, get a fucking job. Well, yeah, okay. They try and get a job, right? The lady with schizophrenia that I was talking about, she had tried to get a job. She wrote her resume a million different ways. Maybe she would get a job for a week, and then, and everybody wants to, and that's why I love the market so much, is because everybody gets a job, right? You can have any kind of mental health or physical health or addiction issue, and we'll hire you, and we'll make it work no matter what. You know what I mean? Even if people have a day.
Well, and that was
they run away or whatever. You know what I mean? They come back and we say, okay, let's work this out.
That was something I noticed coming out of the life myself. I mean, thank God for prison, in a weird roundabout way, because it served as a detox and somewhat, I could get sort of mentally stable. Because I was down
for
there.
Everybody, right?
No, but that's what I mean. If it helped me, because if I hadn't gone to prison, I probably would just be out here, like, suffering from all the stuff, right? But what I did notice is, because I had some of the problems that a lot of the people down here had, I wasn't employable. Yeah. It wasn't even that I couldn't. I could type stuff if I had to. I could do some of the skills or the tasks that employers would want, but I had social problems. I had PTSD that wasn't diagnosed properly, so I acted weird. I was easily triggered. These kinds of things, right? So, and I remember I'd go to employment agencies, and they'd be like, they wouldn't know how to help me, really. Yeah. And so I had to
very, very, very. I mean, that's when you get people in desperation. Especially when you add they have kids or they have other things that are like underlying, and so then there's no hope. That's when people start slipping back into drugs, because when your option. This lady at a fancy dinner party said, I don't understand. I went into the hospital and, I had it for surgery. I had opiates for surgery. I did not like it. And I was like, try sleeping in the pissing rain in the freezing cold alley, and then take some and see if that gives you a better night's sleep. You know what I mean? Because that's what you're dealing with.
Sleeping in the king size mattress.
Yeah, I mean, boom, you're out. It gives you
no problem.
Yeah, because how else are you to deal with that? I mean, I think anyone put under you're not employable. You may have disabilities. You have you don't have a place to go at night, and the only place you have to go, and then add drug dealers that are friendly and whatever else, and a little bit of peace of mind just for a little period of time, and that just makes it easy to use drugs.
Absolutely.
It makes it impossible not to, actually.
No, I am grateful that I had, like I said, in a weird kind of a way, it was good for me that I had the structure of prison and like parole and all that stuff to like because when an inmate gets out, the system has to give them all these things, right? But I was committing violent crimes. Most addicts down here aren't doing things that require imprisonment.
Yeah. Right?
They aren't doing things that they're not dangerous other to themselves, and maybe they're a bit annoying sometimes, but that's about it, right? I know that prison isn't the answer to all this kind of stuff. In my particular case, I needed to be locked up. I was fucking dangerous, right? Like I wasn't really someone who even fit in down here because I was too violent, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting how that's how in one hopeless drug addict's case, he had to go through this kind of really extreme way to kind of, and it wasn't that the system itself helped me. It was just the fact that I had, basically prison served as a long-term detox and treatment center for me. But not treatment in that there were groups and programs. It just, it gave me time to think, right? Yeah. And I think, how would you, and this is a question I'll ask you, what do you think could be done for a population down here that isn't violent but has all the same barriers, minus the criminal violence?
Well, more housing. Having a place to
that's
go.
What prison gave me too, was housing.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And because when I got out,
giving them medical alternatives, like me handing out these alternatives, but then maybe starting to get medical professionals involved to see what's really going on with the person, each person. Yeah. Okay. So this guy's coming every day. He's got schizophrenia. Has he tried all the things that he needs to try? Because I've seen people tried a bunch of different meds that didn't work, that have had schizophrenia, and then eventually they try something and it's like they're like you and me. Right. You know what I mean? No, it just all of a sudden a medication worked for them, and now they're able to function, a relatively normal life. And so sometimes people are just not diagnosed, or they're not dealing with their pain. Maybe instead of using opiates for some people, they need to have safe marijuana alternatives like edibles, because it does work for some people. I see it working for a lot of people, where they just can deal with pain with tinctures and things like that, or so maybe we need to look at other things besides giving people opiates when they get out of the hospital. If we know that they're I've had people come to me and say, I need CBD. It doesn't make you high, but it just takes away some of the pain. Because if I get out of the hospital, they're going to give me opiates, and then I'm going to get back on that thing, right? Where the thing is, it triggers their opiate receptors again. So you give them, giving them CBD, or they go into the hospital and they ask for drugs, and we send them something, some alternatives or something like that. I think trying to figure out what are the alternatives for pain management besides
morphine, oxy,
and oxy. Is there any, and is there any, and are they less addictive? And because we're in this, we need to think about alternatives, and we need to not just do the same thing. Let's just give a bunch of money to cops, right? And then put everybody in jail and have that thing go again and again. It's never worked, really.
No. Is that going down though? Like we have a visitor, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Hi. I'm just doing a podcast right now. Yeah. Let me. Not. Can I come over in a half an hour? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Bye, Damien. Yeah. Nice jacket.
Is that a visitor? We're at Sarah Blyth's office, just off of Hastings. Here's one. Okay, back when I was a youth, coming in contact with the system, whether it was corrections or social work or medical or whatever. There were hardly any resources for youth. Back when I was a kid, there were 2 treatment centers for youth in all of BC.
Yeah.
I think there's only 1 now.
Yeah.
For the public. If you have money, it's a different story. Abstinence-based recovery was the only way they had available back then. Some methadone was around, but it wasn't that popular. Yeah. Now it seems that harm reduction, or whatever you want to call it, is the preferred modality for treating drug addiction, and abstinence has almost become like passé. Like it's not cool to be abstinent anymore. It's a thing I notice when I tell people I'm abstinent. They're like, immediately it almost turns into an argument. Like, and I'm like, whoa, I'm not saying anyone's got to do it my way.
Yeah.
But have you noticed that it's harm reduction is?
Well, I don't use anything, and actually, the reason that I just decided, I was like, screw this. I don't want to be high. I don't want to drink. I don't. And I had met people that I thought were cool at a younger age that I was like, wow, they're cool. They're straight edge. And there was like a group, a community of straight edge people that were, successful and cool. I mean, successful, like photographers or
doing things you thought were successful.
Yeah,
that's
like
the important part.
skateboarders or whatever. You know what I mean? And they were, living life, and they were able to have fun and ride motorcycles, and you know what I mean, do all the things that or snowboard. So I was lucky, and I think we need to create spaces for that, because I think that, and I think you can, right? And I think that young people, especially right now, we have to warn them. Like you can see, no one smokes anymore. Teenagers don't smoke anymore.
The only people I know who smoke really are comedians and people I know who are in recovery.
Yeah.
But most average people don't smoke. They don't even start.
Yeah. So like young people don't smoke. I think I don't know. I think they probably, some of them vape, right? They have those little whatever, e-cigarettes or whatever. But I think you just start young, and there are, like with cigarettes, it's been done, and you never would have thought 10 years ago no teenagers would smoke anymore.
When I was a kid, everyone smoked. All adults smoked.
Yeah, everybody smoked. Everybody smoked. I mean, when I was a kid, people were smoking on planes.
Yeah. You could smoke in a grocery store, right?
Yeah, smoking in a grocery store, smoking planes. And there was no computer, so a big deal. But anyways, I think that there has to be some ways that we can move. Maybe not all drugs. People always experiment with drugs, and I'm not saying everybody has to be abstinent, because that's not a reality. But I think that we have to kind of it's got to be a movement towards that. You can live an interesting life, and yes, it's hard, because as you know, and I know, that sometimes reality is so fucked up that you're just like,
I would love to do a speedball on Saturdays sometimes, just to take fucking wind down, but I know I can't. That's the beginning. That's Pandora's box for me. Even marijuana for me, because I'll take a toke, and I'll be like, this isn't what I like, and now my inhibitions are down, and then I'm going to go looking for what I want, right? Yeah. And I know not everyone's like that.
I think you'll get beyond that at some point, and not that you would, just like slip into, I can do this if I feel like it. But I think, I think for a long time, I just don't really care to do drugs, and I like to have my mind. I'm a bit of a control freak of my mind. I like to know, I like to be in knowing what's going on.
Now that I'm clean,
but I do not. But I don't. What I do not like is that sometimes I have to deal with really stressful situations on my own, and in my own mind, and sometimes it's not. And I've got, ADHD or other anxiety. I have an anxiety disorder, and sometimes it makes it very challenging, right?
Non-pharmacological coping isn't always as instantaneous as smoking a joint, taking a drink, doing a fix.
No.
That's the thing. Breathing exercises, they do work.
Yeah. Or, when I have an anxiety attack, you know what the best thing for an anxiety attack is? Write it in on Google anxiety attack. Yeah. And then it actually has like all the, there's so many places where people who have anxiety attack write exactly how they're feeling, and then you just read how they're feeling, and then it pulls you out of the anxiety attack. That really actually has worked for me.
My best coping, really, and this is where 12-step groups have been helpful for me, is just being able to talk to other people when I'm fucked up. It doesn't cure it, But if I'm like, because my first 5 years out of prison were really hard, right? And because I was dealing with untreated everything, and just being able to go, I feel like killing myself right now, to someone who isn't going to be like, isn't going to panic, and B has felt like that themselves, and then we're just shooting the shit.
And that's
right?
why our overdose prevention site works so well the way that it does, is because the people that are volunteers there are all people that have lived in the alley.
They're peers.
They live in the community. So basically, they're the doctors of knowing, what people are going through and through lived experience. And there's nothing you can do to duplicate that. They're the best people to help the people in their community. And so that's a very unique thing that we've been able to figure out, is that empathy comes from understanding, and understanding comes from having had to deal with that shit before. You get people who come down and they're like, I want to volunteer, which is fucking fabulous, and we love it. But then they come in and, they get traumatized immediately, and they're like, what the, you know what I mean? And then you gotta have coffee conversations with them, and you gotta explain to them, that this is like, it's you know what I mean? It's a lot of work to have people come that are not from the community, understandably, and not that we're not grateful, and there's a lot of really great volunteers, but some people are just, they can't, and we always say, if you find that this is not for you, it's not because you're not a fabulous person, it's because you may not have that lived experience.
Well, when I came down to volunteer,
yeah,
I was just going to help with monitoring P, and I realized right away, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
No, I can't. Because I'm watching people get high, and
it's not that you're not empathetic,
though. No, and absolutely not. And I'm watching them get high, and I could just tell, this is okay today, but eventually I'm going to get either worn out by this, or I'm going to get tempted to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
And in either case, like, I think that, and I'm always watching to make sure that, and we are always watching to make sure that people are, they're okay to do it too, because not everybody can do that. I mean, even people from the downtown, they've had enough. They've seen people die in their neighborhood. You know what I mean?
I know guys who were down here for years and years and years and years and years, totally entrenched. And they got clean, went somewhere else, and they just won't even come down here. They're like, no, I'm never going down there ever again. Yeah. And I don't blame them. Yeah. It's like if so many people, one of the reasons, as you know, that they can't stop is because they can't get out of here. Yeah. And then once they get out, it's like, I know a guy who won't even come into Vancouver. He lives in Abbotsford. He won't come to the city of Vancouver. He's been out. I met him in a treatment center in Abbotsford 8 years ago. He's never left Abbotsford.
Yeah, well, that's PTSD as well, right?
Yeah.
I know a person that's down here that has troubles going into the alley, because the alley
represents
a reminder, right? So wants to help but doesn't want to. And you know what? It makes so much sense, because it's just trauma, and that's PTSD, and it's triggers, not that they would use again, but triggers just for
flashbacks,
memories, and bringing back feelings of, moved on from that, right? Moving on from that, and I think we just need to, I think the market's probably, it's not as well known, but for creating a space where people can start working, and that actually, we've seen people completely get sober that have a job every day.
Because they have a purpose.
They have
something
a purpose.
to come in.
Yeah. So they just say, what, I don't like doing this job hungover, and I want to be here every day, and I have something to do, and we've seen a lot. People have said that the market has saved their lives in a lot of different ways, right? So they have an income, they have a community, they're serving people. People really like what they're doing. They're and then we hopefully can help them move on, to something else, and then if they want. So I think more than anything, just having a market, having some of the we don't really want to expand what we're doing beyond the lowest barrier. Like, if you're homeless, you can have a job with us. We don't. That's kind of what we do in this community, right? And we're not going to fire you. You're not going to get fired. But we have expectations that you're going to meet,
You're like an employer.
Yeah.
You do have to.
Yeah, we have expectations that you'll come on time and those sorts of things. But if you fuck up, then we're going to, we'll have, we can have a coffee about that or something like that, right? So I think those kinds of opportunities are the lifesavers, right? They're better than having to go to jail, right? So, but some people have to go to jail. Yeah. Sometimes people have to, those are just things that have to happen. I don't know. I don't think it's ideal though. I think you can learn those lessons in life. I think a lot of it should have happened, like for you or for me or for any of us, opportunities should have opened up when we were young, so that you don't have to feel, you know what I mean?
I know.
Sometimes things are just inevitable, right? But I think that you can avoid a lot of the shit, a lot of the things that drive you to hopelessness and wanting to, don't giving a shit, like fuck it, that kind of attitude, like fuck it. I see it in people's faces. I see people say things, you know that look of just like, I don't fucking care about you or anything else, when really they do, and I think, and some of them don't. There are some people in the downtown east side that don't, they're clearly sociopaths, and that's crazy.
Completely devoid of empathy.
Yeah, they don't care at all. And, I think some of it is just a wall that you eventually can, but it would take a lot of work, and it shouldn't have gotten there in the first place, right?
I know lots of guys who I was in prison with who were diagnosed as psychopaths, but they really weren't. It was trauma. That label in prison gets thrown around a lot because it's just easier. What I was going to say though,
I think in some ways, you can tell, you can peel it back eventually to see what's there. I mean, sometimes it's inevitable that it's going to just, that they don't have that feelings. They don't have feelings, right?
You tear down the wall and there isn't anything there is kind of the issue. I met lots of guys like that in prison too. But it's not as many as you'd think. People think they're all psychopaths. I only ever met a few who were like I'd get the creeps around them. I'd be like, and they're charming and nice. Yeah. And they always say the right thing too. And I was like, that gave me the creeps. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, you kind of get to know, right down here, you have really you have mental health issues that are undiagnosed, with, people with, all
cognitive
of kind
disability,
of victims. And then you have predators. Some of the worst predators, they get out of jail, they come down here. Yeah. They prey on people, and, sometimes you can't, you get a group of people, you can't tell who's who. But yeah, no, I would agree, the people that are the most sort of aggressive, cunningly, eventually you can kind of figure out who those folks are and learn how to.
What I was going to say is, when you were talking about the inevitability of it and how it shouldn't have to be in prison where you learn all this stuff, I can think back on when I was a troubled kid, how I probably would have ended up in prison even if there were things in place. But what I do notice is that every step along the way, whether it was like my family or my family did try for a while, but like the school system, the mental health system, it was all like, anytime something would happen, I was cast away. It's okay, there, check, get rid of them now. Mm-hmm. Check, get rid of them now. Mm-hmm. Until the only thing left was a jail or a youth detention center, right? And it's like, and again, I'm not going to blame the system. I know I was pretty dedicated to life, but one of the reasons I liked it down here and in jail is that not give a fuck thing. I felt I could be free here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't have to worry about expectations. I could be the loser that I thought I was. You know what I mean? I get high. I don't need to hide it. You know? I'm a maniac, and there's no. I don't need to be good at math, right? Except if I'm getting ripped off from a dealer or something like that. But that's about it. I could just be what I thought I was, which was just a castaway, right? Mm-hmm. And that felt like freedom.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes, and that's the empathy thing and the understanding, because you've been through it and you've gone through the school system that didn't help you, and you have I've got like a grade 10 education myself.
Yeah, I never graduated.
Yeah. And school was one failure after another for me. I mean, I have a hard time. It's like PTSD just even thinking about school and trying to get through that and being embarrassed because I didn't finish my assignments or, embarrassed that, that I wasn't, I don't know, just wasn't achieving and had no future. I mean, nobody gives a shit, no future, whatever. So, I don't know. So understanding that, and then no one's really gonna go to bat for you too much to help you get that, to make sure that you have that and that you do have a future, and that you're gonna be left at your own. You're gonna have to be something you don't want to be, or you know what I mean. And it's not that you're not smart. It doesn't matter if you're smart whether you make it through school or not. A lot of really the smartest people I know didn't make through school, and actually. School created a lot of boundaries for people, and so people like you and me have no boundaries to what we could or could not do, because we were not I wasn't shaped in university to think a certain way and speak a certain way. I'm just like, you know what I mean? And I find that there's a lot of really intelligent people who are out there who just couldn't, for whatever reason, make it through school, that are like brilliant at other things, right? So it doesn't really, I would prefer people to try and make it through school. I would prefer that the school system make sure that all the kids get through school and have some sort of hope at the end of it, whatever it might be.
I often think
because having hope at the end of school is just a fabulous thing. Actually, I did go to hairdressing school, and I actually passed it, and I did really well, and actually that gave me hope, because being successful,
accomplishing something, right?
Being successful at something and passing at something or getting accepted to something gives a person hope to keep going, right? If everything you do you're failing, whether it be math or the basketball team or the soccer team or the this or the that, and you don't make anything, and how many failures does a young person need, really? Like, how many failures should they have? And then what happens to that person that loses hope at a certain point? Like, what is going to happen to me? And those are things that little minds, it's tough enough these days for people that we should try and fix it all before they get out of high school. And that, right now, there's no help. There's only help if you have autism. So any kid that has any learning disabilities, they try and figure out how to diagnose that kid with autism to get funding. You know what I mean? That's how it goes, right? How can we get them, if they just have a few other things, you can classify it as autism, and then they'll get extra support, and then they'll make it through, right? But everybody else, there's this huge scale of all kinds of disabilities that don't get extra help.
And some of the people who don't have autism are worse off than the ones with autism.
Yeah.
That's, right.
So, because there's this disability all the way to this, and you can have all kinds of stuff going on, and the only person who's going to help is autism. So what happens is they hire the people to help the autism kids, and then they have to help all these other kids at the same time, which is not what they're being paid to do. So they usually try and put a few kids in the class with the person who's helping the autism person, and then their time gets spent on other kids too. So I think it's ridiculous that that you would have to classify kids as autism to get them help, and I think it's I think the government should be giving a lot more funding towards just kids with learning disabilities, because honestly, then you're just, if you give those kids hope, then at the end of their school, if they're successful, they're not going to be in the street, they're not going to be homeless, they're not going to be, feeling hopeless in situations. They're going to have to do things that they didn't want to, right? They didn't fall through the cracks. The more kids that don't fall through the cracks, so the less people you're going to have on the street in the first place, right?
Yeah, outside.
Because they got hope, right? And I think, you won't find a person down here that lost hope in high school. Right? They're not that. I'm sure they weren't. You get some that went on to university. Lots of them do, and lots of them, with set normal lives that just got caught up in different ways. Right? Gangs came in, school shoes, whatever. I don't even know how it works, but having young people being successful and hope is a huge deterrent and big cost savings. Eventually,
long term. It's an initial cash up front thing, but because you're right. A lot of the time, and I learned this in dealing with corrections, but it applies to so many different other areas. We're dealing with it after.
Yeah, when
it's virtually too late.
Yeah.
Now it's management.
Yeah.
Now it's palliative care. Basically.
Yeah.
Right?
And then So and then that's how they're a kid for how long?
Till they're 18. I
for 5 years,
yeah.
right? They're a kid through high school for 5 years.
Yeah.
So to have a successful kid enter the society for the next 50 years of their life is a very cost-effective thing. So even if you have to dump a bunch of money into the school system to help these kids, more sports teams. Sports is fucking great.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It doesn't.
Sports are fucking great because they give people the same feeling of high, of endorphin release.
And it's a team, so they're together with other people.
Yeah.
Or if it could be tennis, it's by themselves, but whatever.
It leaves people more. And I saw that because we started a team from the homeless shelter I worked at. We started a team. We went to the Homeless World Cup. We worked on getting everybody's their passports and everything. And then we went to the Homeless World Cup in Rio, and that was the end goal. And it was kind of to try and get some semi-sober, and so that we aren't using, because you don't want to be using them
in a foreign country,
yeah. But anyways, the majority of those guys came back, and they're doing, just by cleaning, having hope, doing something different, clearing their
something
records,
to work towards,
a goal, a team that still hangs out together now. They're all doing really well, right? And some of them were in a homeless shelter, right? So, I think all of that sort of thing where you can bring people together, young people together, and deal with those issues, as many of them as you possibly can. And I don't see why that's such a hard thing for people to understand. The problem is government likes to do things that happen today so that the results show tomorrow, as opposed to thinking about things like, we'll save so much money if we just get enough support for people like Mark, who's obviously I don't know how you did in school, but I mean, I'm sure you could have.
Academically, I did fine. It was my behavior problems that got me in the most. That was the problem.
So, what do you think you could have used in school?
Okay. Let's just say hypothetically, family was a big problem, but let's just say in school, I didn't know it, but I know it now. I was probably creative. And not just drama class. Something. Someone could have said. If someone could have said, let's say it said, try this, try this, try this, try this.
Yeah.
Maybe one of those things would have been like, I like that.
Yeah.
Right. But all that was available, and I wasn't guided into it. You had to do drama, and there was some art, and I didn't like any of that because I had bad hand-eye coordination, so my drawing was bad.
I think that's a very good thing. It's like identifying what people are good at that crucial stage, so that they don't think they're good at nothing.
Right, because that's
what I mean. So you know what? Having that crucial conversation, maybe in grade 9 or 10, where you go, you know what? Maybe these are going to be your options. And you will have options. They're not going to be. They may not be these unless you did this, 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 and this. But they could be these. Would you like any of these options?
That would have.
Because there's lots of options, right?
Tons, and all that was really presented to me at the time was you're doing this so you can eventually go to university, and you just start thinking, well, that's the only option that you have, and if you're not good at the stuff that would get you into university, because not everyone's going to be, well, you're fucked, so why even bother doing any of this shit, right? And when it turns out, like you're saying, there's lots of things. Maybe university, lots of people aren't going to be university types. They're going to be art school types or trade school type or whatever, or maybe not at school at all. Maybe they'll just do a sport, something, right? And
I mean, maybe we need to rethink that too. I mean, I don't know, whatever. Maybe you and I should be the prime minister.
Okay.
No, but I think that I think things aren't working properly, and I think that they're
clearly, just look out the window. Something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
The most livable city in fucking Canada, apparently. There's garbage out front, across the street, syringes, and all this kind of that's really. This is the most livable. I know the other thing is they concentrate it down to this area, and then there's Yaletown and Kits and all this kind of stuff, and.
I think, and even those students from Marpole, the students from Marpole, were actually the smartest in the Marpole housing debate, and just saying that, like, it just makes sense for reintegration into communities. I mean, in normal, communities where people can be part of an actual community, sometimes it's a really good thing to get. It normalizes people, their lives.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think being in downtown East Side, and this is your only housing option for people, especially when they're wanting to escape drug use or they want to try something a little different, or they may not know, just being part of a normal community might actually, lead them to, seek a more...
And that's the secret of my success is I wouldn't have been able to live the life I do now. If I might still be alive, I might not even be that bad off, relatively speaking, but I needed to get out of here. And I needed to try. And I remember when I got out of prison and I started interacting and I started, being clean and doing things, I was like, I gotta learn, at least try to interact with, like, kind of normal society. I gotta see what's out there. I don't want to be on the outside looking in all the time. Now, it turns out I don't really want to, like, normal society. I move around in it, but I know I'm a weirdo that's never going to totally fit in, but I'm okay with that. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't give it a shot.
Yeah.
Right? If I'd just been, I guess all I can live is in the downtown East Side. That's all I got. Hey?
Yeah.
And welfare and methadone, and that's it. That's all I got. If I hadn't been removed from it and, attempted to see what options, what like you were saying, options are available for me, I probably wouldn't even be alive right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's and I think it's important for people to have those options and to be able to live outside of this community. This community, like you said, causes some people don't even want to come to this community once they get off drugs because it's traumatizing for them for whatever reason. Some people don't want to leave this community, and that's great. This is I think it.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I come down, I still feel at home down here.
Yeah.
I don't want to move back.
Yeah.
Especially if it looks different than it used to. It's more chaotic now than
Yeah.
it used to be. But I'm walking by the west as I'm coming here to meet you, and I had to stop and look at it and go, there's some, dare I say, good memories down there. Fucked up shit was going on, but I felt
it's part of
free for a long time down here. As a kid who was lost and didn't know what the fuck was going on and didn't feel safe at home, I felt like there was something was at least going on.
And there's a lot of good supports for people in that situation.
Absolutely.
And, I think mainly the frustrating part as a person trying to support people down here is that there's just not enough options for people. I'd love to be able to give a person who needs the option, they're ready to, be clean and move into another neighborhood. There's no option for that. Or they get out of on-site and then they go back, into
downstairs.
Yeah. And they don't have any other option than that. So I think giving people options, the more options for different people, because all people are different, right? And it's interesting. One interesting thing that the general populace doesn't understand is that it can happen really to anyone at any stage in their life, right? You get in an accident or you have like a nervous breakdown and then all of a sudden you're taking Valiums and then the Valium and then the doctor says no more Valiums, and then you continue to have your nervous breakdown and the only relief you get, you end up getting drugs here or there, and the next thing you know, you're like, something fucked up happens and you're like in a homeless shelter or something like that. And I've seen that. I've seen it a lot of times, and it happens to, normal people and everyday people, right? So, and it happens a lot to everyday people. A construction worker gets in an accident, he goes on WCB, he gets pulled off meds, he's like now on, Oxy, and then he can't get off, and then goes looking for it, whatever else, and then loses a job, or blah, blah, blah. The story goes on. I
know people in rehab who'd show up for a booze problem, not even that bad, relatively speaking, and then they learn a bunch of stuff in treatment, because, guys would be talking, war stories, etc., etc., and the booze hound, not even that bad, like still had a job and stuff, goes, wow, is that what coke, shooting coke and smoking crack is like? Then I see them down here.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming treatment, but I mean, on the surface, before they enter treatment, they were relatively normal, maybe should cut down on their drinking.
Yeah.
Now they're crackheads.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Or
yeah.
worse,
I mean,
or like shooting.
And it happens to so many people. It's very shocking how it really just doesn't matter where you come from, what neighborhood, whatever. I've seen everybody from every kind of neighborhood and every kind of education that you could possibly imagine, and every age group. People try heroin for their first time in like their 40s, right? And then, they think, oh, and then it gives some relief to whatever. And, things happen. So, it's like, there's nothing, it's just that you need other options for people, and we need to be able to talk about drugs. And, if people sort of slip down that slope, we need to figure out something that's not addictive to deal with some of these stress issues. I think getting out of hospital, I mean, it may sound, to some people it probably sounds a bit bizarre, but, can we give them, ideally, if things like CBD work for pain relief, like why can't we start to give them something that's not going to be horribly addictive and kill them?
Well, marijuana is going to be legal next year,
yeah.
Right? I don't know. My sense is that this will start becoming more common.
Yeah, and you know what?
There's
yeah.
I mean, we live in Vancouver,
yeah,
right? I think people just need to know it's more available.
Yeah,
really. It just maybe
for pain relief.
Exactly. That's it. Just sort of education and marketing, just like this is a possibility, and not have it.
And you know what? There's possibilities. It's a lot different than it used to be.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot different. Before you just smoked it, and if you don't like smoking, then that's it.
Yeah.
Or if you don't like the way it feels to get high on THC, that's it. But now they've got strain. Well, I mean they probably always have, but you can become more familiar with the different kinds of strains, and some make you feel tired and sleepy, and some don't. And there's CBD that actually doesn't make you feel really anything at all.
Just whatever.
It sort of sits on your receptors. Right. It's a different kind of a thing. It's not It's
not meant to make you a psychoactive.
No, it's just meant to kind of sit on your kill pain and sit on your receptors as opposed to like opiates that actually enter them. Right. So it kind of I don't know. Maybe those are. We really just need to think about what our alternatives are, and that we don't get all these people so addicted. With no, sometimes we just need to look at different types of options. That's about it, I guess.
That's a good place to end it. I always ask my guests one thing. For the average person listening, just the average who doesn't really know anything, they just go to work and they just live their life. Is there anything you'd like to let them know?
I guess I guess since we're talking about drugs, if you're going to use drugs, don't use them alone. And get them tested. You can get them tested. I mean, don't you want to know what's in your drugs? I would. If I was doing drugs, it would be fun to go to Insight and see exactly what's in it.
And you party girls, will get you on the guest list, okay? Well, we've been talking to Sarah Blyth. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
And I'll shut her down now, if I can. Let's see if this...